Former Yankees catcher Jim Leyritz with Armen and Levack live at 5:15 every Wednesday throughout the Yankee season thanks to Red Wing Shoes. And Jim, do you think Alex Rodriguez was snubbed for the All-Star game because of his image off the field?
No, I don't think. I think that might have, of course, have a little bit of play in it. He's having a good comeback year, but an All-Star year as a DH, I don't know. I'm not buying that one. I will say this much. I was just in a golf outing for Hank Steinbrenner and the Hanks Yanks, and they brought Alex to the dinner. He stood up and gave a speech, and it's the first time I've ever heard him talk like somebody that has been humble. And it was very encouraging to me that maybe this is a guy that's turned the corner and realizes what a jerk he probably was and wants to make up for that and is doing everything he can to do that. It was very interesting to hear him speak after hearing him so many other times that I could have just almost thrown up. To hear him speak with a very candid heart, it was something that for me was encouraging to see.
Were you at all shocked? I mean, the golf course was owned by Trump. Trump was there. And in 2013, Donald Trump went on a full-blown Alex Rodriguez is a junkie. He's guilty as hell, all this other stuff. And A-Rod still says the right things there. Does it at all shock you how well A-Rod has handled himself?
I will say this. Donald got up before him. He gave his speech. And he did say that I misread, even though I still won't take back the fact that Alex made some mistakes and did some bad things. What he's doing now, I think, is what Alex Rodriguez should have been doing all along.
Oh, wow.
He really gave Alex some good pointed, hey, listen, just like I said. It was interesting that Old Timer Day, every single one of us that was a current player was out in that dugout meeting every legend and every person just to get more history about what the Yankees were all about and what it was special to be a part of. And the only one that came out this year was Alex Rodriguez. And it just so happened he stood next to me, and the article in the Post, of course, was a picture of him and I together. It was about both of us and the redemption stories. And it was the first time that I actually talked to him just briefly and said, how's it going? And he said, Jimmy, I made a lot of mistakes. And I didn't ask him for that. He just said it. And I think he realized what I'd been through and what I'd gone through and what I was trying to do as far as, earn back the respect of people. I think he's doing that. And I don't think, and I could be wrong, I don't think it's an act this time. I think he's really been humbled by this entire situation.
And why? Why do you say that, Jim? I mean, you would know. Why do you see? Because here's the thing. We get calls every day of he's full of crap. He's putting on a show. Watch your feet. You're going to step in all that BS that he's dropping everywhere.
Well, that's because of the groundwork he's laid before.
Okay.
One of the things that I didn't have to worry about is my character, because my character before the accident and the domestic violence thing, but I had very good character, and I did a lot of things for foundations and charities, so I didn't really have to do anything to change my reputation, just go back to being myself. A-Rod had to change. A person that's been through this, when I hear the words that comes out of his mouth, unless he has just been practicing it every single day for a movie or something, to me it seems sincere. It seems from the heart, and that's coming from, like I said, somebody that's been through that type of situation.
On the field, I know myself, I'm a diehard Yankee fan. I mean, I make that clear every second I get.
You do? I had no idea.
Yeah, right. I want to believe on his on the field ability more than anything, but there is that specter. There are people waiting for him to fail a test. Do you, after seeing him, after talking to him, do you think that's a possibility?
I don't think he'd ever risk it. I don't think that he would ever risk that again. I think he realized the damage that he's done. And for you, you want to worry about him on the field. For me, it's more important, and this is what I've always had to argue with about. Hey, Rod, you are one of the 5 greatest players that I've seen play the game, athletically, talent, and everything else. And I don't think all of it was steroids and HGH and all this other stuff. I don't think that was all of it. You are one of the greatest, but what you do off the field with kids and everything else is abominable. And I was always very straight and very upright with him about that. And in my radio and my TV, and I always talked about that. I really, truly feel that the 2 or 3 conversations I've had with him since, that he's finally getting what it means to be not a great role model because of the things he's done in the past, but be able to tell these kids, hey, listen, I did it wrong at first, and I want to change that. And, like the second part, I've always talked about this in my speeches. I left a baseball legacy with the Yankees, but I'm beginning to leave a life legacy after I was retired. And that's more important leaving than any baseball legacy I could possibly leave. And I think maybe, and I'm praying to God for him, that A-Rod is kind of figuring that out, that once his baseball career is over, he needs to be this positive influence and this positive, guy that could maybe change kids from making the decisions that he made before.
Jim, so much is made of the Yankees not having like that big name star, and I think part of that is because one of the best players on their team, he's up for the final vote. He's not the type to grab the spotlight at all. Brett Gardner, how important is it for him, do you think, to or for the team to get him into that All-Star game?
Oh, I think it would be great. I would think, again, like you said, this is not a team of all-stars. It's guys that grind it. We call them grinders. They grind it out every day. And Brett Gardner is one of those guys. I mean, I remember watching Brett as a rookie. He reminded me exactly of my son. He gets a lot of speed, a lot of talent, great in the outfield, but, man, he couldn't hit a lick. And, he got a lot of infield hits by chopping the ball down, and I knew that wasn't going to last once he got to the big league. But he developed himself into a better hitter year in and year out to the minor leagues. And what he's done at this big league level, to me, is as impressive as anything else. And if there's anybody deserving of it, he has been one of the keys at this ball club. And unfortunately, losing Ellsbury, that dynamic of him and Ellsbury together really could help the Yankees in the second half, to get over that offensive slump that they've been in all year.
Jim Leyritz, former Yankee with Armen and Levack, thanks to Red Wing Shoes. Jim, do you buy the fact that Brett Gardner, not as big of a personality, not as vocal, the fact that he's a little quiet, that's the reason why he's not the face, and that's a big reason as to why he wasn't voted? You just said he's got the stats to be in the All-Star game. Are those little tangibles the reason why he wasn't voted in? Because the fans don't recognize him as much.
Yeah, they could be, but then you really got to think about some of the competition in the outfield. I mean, you could make two whole teams just for an outfield. There's that many great all-stars, and great guys having great years, and those guys that are still getting the credit for this year because of what they did, that are on that ballot. This is a popularity contest, and be kind of like you said, he's not that vocal guy. He does play in New York, so people are going to hear about him. At the same time, I don't think Brett Gardner, as much as it would be an honor, it reminds me of our 94, 95 teams that we didn't have too many all-stars, but we had a lot of guys that were really, really good. And we weren't worried about all the accolades that go along with it. All we cared about was at the end of the year, were we going to the playoffs? And that's all we cared about. And I think Brett Gardner, since he's come up through the Yankee system, has had that drilled into him pretty good.
Jim, you touched on Ellsbury returning. The Yankees are a game and a half up on the Orioles and the Blue Jays, and now they're about to get not only Ellsbury but Miller back. What kind of a boost is that going to be for this team?
It gives Brian Cashman a perfect reason to say, listen, I'm not doing anything for the deadline. Why should I? I've got Nova back. Evaldi's had 3 good starts now. We'll get into that in just a minute. And, the pitching staff is starting, with the exception of CC, that might be the tough decision later, if the next 2 or 3 starts, if he can't turn it around, bringing Warren back in the rotation and putting CC in the bullpen, that might be an option that they might need to do. But other than that, I really think with Miller coming back, with Tanaka still throwing the ball pretty well, you really don't have too many additions that you need on this ball club. And I think Brian Cashman's in a pretty good spot for saying, hey, we're going with what we got, and we feel pretty good about it. I mean, you think about it. They're in first place. Even though it's not a great record, they're not running away with this whole thing. The fact that they're in first place over what they've been through is another testament to Girardi and what he's able to keep that locker room like in that type of situation. So I think it's Joe has done once again a hell of a job of keeping his team together and focused on that day-to-day goal of winning.
Jim Leyritz with Armen and Levack on 104.5 The Team, thanks to Red Wing Shoes. All right, so Joe's doing such a great job. Can you explain last night, 6 1/3 inning for Nathan Eovaldi? The score was 2-1. He was yanked out of the game. Why would Girardi pull him out at that time?
I've said this all along about Joe. Him and I are very close. I love him to death. I'll be the first one to compliment him. But I'm also the first one to say this. Sometimes when you go by the book too much, and then you don't go by the book, you're going to get questioned. And when I told you I was watching the game last night, and I see Eovaldi pitching, and he just gets to get first out in the 7th inning, and I'm going, what's he doing? Why is he taking him out? The guy's giving up 6 hits, only 1 walk, I think, and 2 strikeouts or something like that. I said, listen, he's pitching good. was it maybe the weather that he took him out? He was feeling bad. And then, of course, in the press conference, he said it was because of the lefty-lefty matchup that he liked. Well, okay, I'll go with that. You got your butt covered there because that is what the book says you should do if you're questioning, because Reddick hit the ball twice off him pretty good. Okay, that's a good move. But why in the heck wouldn't you walk out to the mound with Adam Warren ready in your bullpen to face Billy Butler? Because Billy Butler owns left-handed pitching. And that's the part that if I was a reporter in that room after the question was asked about why did you take him out of Evaldi, and he had an answer for it, because by the book I do this, well, then I would have been the reporter that said, well, then why did you leave in the lefty to face Billy Butler when the book probably told you to make that change?
Jim,
that would be my question.
But Jim, Girardi, is he almost handcuffed? Is he almost weakened by the fact that he goes by the book so often? To see him go by his gut once in a while, I almost, even though it didn't work out, I'm almost excited about it.
I mean, maybe that, he does hear the voices that do tell him that every now and then, that you do go by too much by the book. Because, I mean, listen, and again, that's why he was during his career, and that's why the dynamic of him catching and me catching was so great, because I did it completely the opposite. And it was more of a gut feeling for me than it was necessarily. I went with the gut of my picture more than I did with the book. But it's just like this sabermetric stuff and everything else. You can build a solid business with the sabermetrics, with these matchups, with all the stats and everything you got, all these things that you have. But will you be able to get over that good company and become a great company? Now, if Joe was asked that question, why didn't you make that change? And he would have said, you know what, I went by my gut, then he would have covered himself. But no one asked that question, so I will never have that answer to know whether or not that's what Joe was doing at that particular moment.
Jim Leyritz with Armen and Levack. Jim, how do the Yankees get rid of or replace a struggling Stephen Drew who has practically the worst batting average in baseball?
What they need is any one of these young kids, these second basemen, to step up and get hot and force that hand. He's got to give Peralta and some of those other kids a chance to play for a week straight and see if they can't get hot and help. I mean, J.D. Drew still helps in the field. He made a couple of nice plays yesterday. He still helps in the field with the gloves, but you're at a point now where your offense is anemic and you need some help. And, with Ellsbury coming back, that's going to help. But if one of these young kids that get an opportunity at second base can step in one day, go 3 for 4, and the next day go 3 for 4, and give Joe that reason, I think he'd do it in a heartbeat, but that just hasn't happened yet.
But all we've heard about, Jim, is Rob Refsnyder. Like, eventually he's the guy, and this year he was okay in spring. Where is he? Why isn't he getting an opportunity?
That's a good question. It's one of those situations where the scouts that the Yankees have that are watching this kid feel like he's ready for the big leagues, because you're not putting him into a situation where there's a lot of time to adjust.
Jim Leyritz thinks of Red Wing Shoes in Clifton Park, where just like the Yankees, excellence is a standard. Visit them at cliftonpark.redwingshoestore.com. They can fit your feet, your job, your hobby, and your wallet. Last week, Jim Leyritz had the scoop about Reggie Jackson going to check out Aaron Judge. This week, having the scoop about A-Rod and Donald Trump at the golf tournament. I tell you what, Levack, we should call Jim Leyritz the chef, because he keeps getting that great dish.
Oh, dear God. He thought about that all week.
That's a good one.
He thought of that. Don't humor him, Jim. You're better than this.
Try, man. I got this.
Hey, listen, if I have to listen to John Sterling make those kind of calls, I'll listen to whatever he is.
He just put you up with Sterling. That's a pretty, all right, I'll take it.
I'll take it. Yeah, absolutely. Ellsbury it. Jimmy Leyritz with Armen and Levack. Jimmy, good talking to you, man. Hope your son is doing well with his Tommy John surgery recovery, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, love you, brothers. I'll talk to you next week.